My name is Jennifer Martinez, and what I'm about to share with you changed my life forever. On March 15th, 2024, I didn't just have a brush with death. I actually died for 15 minutes during what should have been a routine gallbladder surgery. During that time, Jesus Christ himself revealed to me shocking truths about the mark of the beast that I was commanded to share with the world. What I learned will shake you to your core. But before I tell you about the incredible revelations I received, I need you to understand how I got there. It started with what seemed like ordinary stomach pain. I had been experiencing sharp pains in my upper abdomen for several weeks. At first, I dismissed it as nothing serious. I've always been healthy, rarely even caught a cold. At 52 years old, I thought I was invincible. How wrong I was. The pain kept getting worse, especially after meals. One Sunday morning, while getting ready for church, the pain became unbearable. My husband, David, rushed me to the emergency room. After several tests, the doctors discovered my gallbladder was severely infected and needed immediate removal. They scheduled the surgery for the next morning. I wasn't worried. Gallbladder surgery is so common nowadays. The surgeon explained it would be a simple laparoscopic procedure, in and out in a few hours. I remember joking with the nurse as she prepped me for surgery, telling her I'd be home in time for dinner. Little did I know I was about to embark on a journey that would forever change my understanding of these end times we're living in. The last thing I remember before everything changed was the anesthesiologist counting down. 10, 9, 8. I never heard 7. That's when everything went wrong. Later, I learned that I had a severe reaction to the anesthesia, causing my heart to stop. But what happened during those 15 minutes when I was clinically dead is what I need to share with you today. The moment my heart stopped, I felt myself floating above my body. I could see the medical team working frantically below me, trying to restart my heart. But I wasn't scared. Instead, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace wash over me. Then everything changed. The operating room faded away, and I found myself being drawn through what I can only describe as a tunnel of pure light. The light was unlike anything we have here on Earth. It wasn't harsh or blinding, but rather it was warm and welcoming. As I moved through this tunnel, I became aware of a presence beside me. I knew immediately it was Jesus Christ himself. His love was so intense, so pure, it brought tears to my eyes. But he hadn't brought me here just to experience his love. He had something crucial to show me. Suddenly, I was transported to what appeared to be our world, but somehow different. Jesus spoke to me, not with words, but directly to my soul. He showed me visions of the near future, scenes that left me both terrified and deeply concerned for humanity. I saw people standing in long lines at what looked like government buildings. But these weren't ordinary administrative offices. These were processing centers where people were receiving what Jesus revealed to me was the mark of the beast. What shocked me most wasn't the mark itself, but how willingly people were accepting it. The centers looked modern and welcoming, more like an Apple store than a government facility. The staff wore friendly smiles and spoke soothingly to everyone who entered. Jesus then showed me a series of detailed scenes that broke my heart. I saw a young mother named Emma struggling to buy medicine for her sick child. The pharmacy system wouldn't accept her payment method anymore. The pharmacist, speaking with genuine sympathy, explained that the new system required the mark for all medical purchases. "It's for your protection," he said kindly. "With all the counterfeit drugs out there, we need to ensure every transaction is secure." I watched Emma's internal struggle, tears streaming down her face as she looked at her feverish child, finally making the decision to accept the mark just this once, for her daughter's sake. Then Jesus showed me a scene in a retirement community. An elderly man named Frank, a faithful churchgoer his whole life, was listening to a presentation. The speaker was explaining how the new system would protect seniors from fraud and scams. Your retirement funds, your medical care, Everything will be completely secure, the presenter assured them. Frank raised his hand, asking about the religious implications. The presenter smiled warmly. This is about security and convenience, not religion. Would God not want us to use technology to protect his children from harm? I saw Frank nodding slowly, convincing himself that this made sense. In another vision, I saw a prominent pastor addressing his congregation. He held his Bible in one hand and gestured passionately with the other. "Brothers and sisters," he declared, "we must be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. This new system is simply a technological advancement, like the internet or smartphones. The mark spoken of in Revelation was about worship, not about a new payment system. We shouldn't let fear prevent us from embracing progress." Many in his congregation looked relieved, as if they'd been wanting someone to give them permission to accept what was coming. Jesus showed me how social media and news networks would play a crucial role. I saw influencers and celebrities showcasing how convenient their lives had become with the mark. They demonstrated how they could pay for anything with a simple gesture, enter any building without identification, and access all their medical records instantly. Their followers were entranced by the seeming perfection of this system. Then I saw something that chilled me to my core. I witnessed how the system would handle religious objections. They didn't fight or argue. Instead, they expressed understanding and offered alternatives that seemed reasonable at first. "You can start with just the basic version," they would say. "It's removable and doesn't go under the skin. Once you see how it works, you can upgrade later." This approach disarmed many believers who thought they could find a middle ground. Jesus revealed to me how the mark would be introduced in phases. The first phase looked completely innocent, just a small external device you could wear or remove at will. The second phase was presented as an upgrade for better security, moving to something more permanent, but still seemingly harmless. The final phase was pitched as the ultimate convenience, permanently linking the person to the global system. Each step seemed logical, reasonable, and beneficial. I saw how workplaces would implement the system gradually. First, it was just for building access, then for logging into computers, finally for receiving payment. At each step, it was presented as optional, but those who didn't participate found themselves increasingly isolated and limited in their career opportunities. One of the most disturbing scenes Jesus showed me was a family gathering. A grandmother was celebrating her 75th birthday, surrounded by her children and grandchildren, but she couldn't access her retirement funds to buy presents for her grandchildren because she had refused the mark. Her adult children were pressuring her, not out of malice, but out of genuine concern for her well-being. "Mom," they pleaded, "times have changed. This is just how things work now. Do you want to spend your retirement years struggling unnecessarily?" Jesus showed me how schools would be used to normalize the system for younger generations. Children would learn about it in their classes, presented as part of natural technological progress. They would go home and innocently question their parents' resistance. "But why don't we have it, Mom? Teacher says it's safer. Don't you want us to be safe?" I saw how the media would subtly shame those who refused the mark, portraying them as backward, selfish, and problematic. News stories would highlight cases of fraud or crime that could have been prevented if everyone was in the system. They never forced anyone, but the psychological pressure was constant and overwhelming. The healthcare system played a major role in the visions Jesus showed me. I saw how medical emergencies would become a crucial pressure point. Hospitals would explain that they couldn't guarantee treatment without proper integration into the system. Insurance would become increasingly difficult to use without it. The choice became stark: accept the mark or risk being without medical care. Jesus showed me how the system would be marketed differently to different groups. For young professionals, it was about convenience and being part of the future. For parents, it was about safety and security for their children. For the elderly, it was about medical care and financial security. Each message was carefully crafted to address specific fears and desires. I saw small business owners struggling with the decision. Their customers were increasingly using the new system, and sales were dropping. Banks were making it harder to process traditional payments. The pressure wasn't obvious or violent. It was the quiet pressure of economic reality. Many would give in, seeing no other way to provide for their families. Then Jesus revealed something crucial about the nature of the mark itself. It wasn't just a technological innovation. It changed something fundamental in those who received it. I saw how people's eyes would change after accepting it. The light of free will dimmed, replaced by a strange contentment with the system. They couldn't see anything wrong anymore, couldn't understand why others were still resisting. In another scene, I saw how holidays and special occasions would be used to promote acceptance. Black Friday sales that were mark exclusive, special discounts and privileges for those in the system. Those without the mark would watch from the sidelines as others enjoyed benefits they couldn't access. Jesus showed me how food distribution would eventually be tied to the system. Local grocery stores would still accept alternative payments at first, but their supplies would become limited. The best quality food, the freshest produce, would only be available through mark-controlled distribution centers. The choice would become stark: accept the mark or accept increasingly limited options. I saw how travel would become another pressure point. First, international travel required it. Then, domestic flights. Eventually, even buying fuel for your car would become difficult without it. People's worlds would shrink unless they accepted the new system. But Jesus didn't just show me the pressure tactics. He showed me how some people successfully resisted. I saw communities of believers supporting each other, growing food together, sharing resources, creating alternative networks of trade and support. They had less in material terms, but their eyes shone with a clarity and purpose that was missing from those who had accepted the mark. These faithful communities weren't surviving by accident. Jesus showed me how they had prepared, both spiritually and practically. They had studied their Bibles and built strong relationships before the pressure became intense. They had learned practical skills and created support networks while it was still easy to do so. Throughout all these visions, Jesus impressed upon me the importance of preparation, not just physical preparation, but spiritual preparation. He showed me how critical it was for believers to build their faith now, before the pressure becomes intense. He revealed that those who were deeply rooted in His Word and had a genuine personal relationship with Him would be better equipped to recognize and resist the deception. I saw how the enemy would use fear as a primary tool: fear of lack, fear of suffering, fear of being excluded. But Jesus showed me that perfect love casts out fear, and those who truly understood His love would find strength to stand firm. He showed me how many would be protected and provided for in supernatural ways, just as He provided manna for the Israelites in the wilderness. One of the most important things Jesus revealed was how the mark would be connected to worship. It wasn't just about economics or convenience. At its core, accepting the mark was an act of worship, a choosing of which kingdom you would serve. Those who accepted it were unknowingly pledging their allegiance to a system opposed to God's kingdom. I was shown how the mark would be integrated with a new kind of spiritual system, one that combined elements of various beliefs into something that seemed inclusive and appealing. This system promised to unite humanity, end religious conflicts, and bring about world peace. It sounded beautiful, but Jesus showed me it was a counterfeit of true unity that can only come through Him. During this experience, Jesus allowed me to feel the spiritual weight of these decisions. I felt the anguish of those who accepted the mark and later realized what they had done, but could not undo it. I also felt the joy and peace of those who chose to remain faithful despite difficulties. The contrast was stark and unforgettable. Jesus showed me specific signs to watch for, things that would indicate this system was being implemented. He showed me how digital currency would play a crucial role, preparing people to accept a completely controlled economic system. I saw how privacy concerns would be used to justify increasing surveillance and control. But perhaps most importantly, Jesus showed me how crucial it was for believers to stay in constant communion with Him through prayer and Bible study. Those who maintained this close relationship would receive wisdom and discernment to navigate these challenging times. He showed me how the Holy Spirit would guide and strengthen His people, providing supernatural wisdom to see through the deception. I was shown how important it would be for believers to support and encourage one another. The temptation to accept the mark would be incredibly strong, and many would need the strength that comes from Christian fellowship to resist. Jesus emphasized that no one should try to face these challenges alone. Throughout all of these visions, Jesus kept reminding me that His return was near. He showed me how all of these events were part of His plan, and that even in the midst of great deception and difficulty, He would be working to draw people to Himself. He showed me how many would come to faith during this time, recognizing the truth as they witnessed the faithfulness of believers who refused the mark. Jesus impressed upon me the urgency of sharing this message. He showed me how many people would need to hear this warning to prepare themselves spiritually for what's coming. He revealed that many would dismiss these warnings, but some would listen and be saved because of them. I was shown how the enemy would try to discredit these warnings, making them seem foolish or extreme. But Jesus showed me that those with spiritual discernment would recognize the truth in them. He emphasized that these warnings weren't meant to create fear, but to prepare people to stand firm in their faith. As my time with Jesus was coming to an end, He gave me a final message of hope. He showed me that while these times would be difficult, they would also be a time of unprecedented spiritual growth for those who remained faithful. He showed me how His power would be displayed in remarkable ways among those who refused the mark. Just before I was sent back, Jesus gave me a specific mission. He told me I needed to share what I had seen with as many people as possible. He impressed upon me that every person who heard this message would have a choice to make, not just about the mark itself, but about their relationship with Him. The next thing I knew, I was back in my body, gasping for air as the medical team successfully revived me. The surgery was eventually completed successfully, but that hardly seemed important compared to what I had experienced. The doctors called my recovery miraculous, but they had no idea of the real miracle that had occurred. Since that day, I've felt an urgent need to share what Jesus showed me. I understand now why He allowed me to experience clinical death for those 15 minutes. It wasn't just about the information He shared, but about the spiritual weight and reality of what's coming. I want to be clear, I'm not sharing this to frighten anyone. Jesus showed me these things so we could prepare ourselves and help others prepare. The key is not to live in fear, but to draw closer to Jesus now, before these events unfold. He showed me that those who build their relationship with Him now will have the strength to stand when these challenges come. What I experienced during those 15 minutes has completely transformed my understanding of the times we're living in. The urgency I feel to share this message grows stronger every day. Jesus made it clear that time is short, and we need to be preparing ourselves spiritually for what's ahead. If you're watching this, please understand that this isn't just another story. What I experienced was real, and the warnings I received are crucial for our time. Jesus showed me that each person who hears this message will have to make their own decision about how to respond to it. I encourage you to take these warnings seriously. Study your Bible. Pray for discernment. Build your relationship with Jesus now, while there is still time. The decisions we make in the coming days will have eternal consequences. Remember, Jesus showed me that it's not just about refusing the mark, it's about being so close to Him that we can recognize and resist the deception when it comes. Thank you for listening to my story. I pray that the Holy Spirit will give you wisdom and discernment as you consider what I've shared. May God bless you and keep you strong in the faith as we navigate these challenging times together.